I will point out our projections for the Miami Dolphins. First of all, we have them with 8.2 average mean wins, so just a little bit below 500 is the average. They make the playoffs 37% of the time. DVOA projections wise, we do see the offense improving. So their offensive projection is 12th. It's their defensive projection that's 27th. And then the schedule is second. So I think offensive wise, we do expect that the Mike McDaniel offense plus Tyreek Hill is going to bring some improvement to this offense. And I think, just Tyreek Hill alone, adding someone like that. Now, I will say, research I've done in the past shows you lose more by losing a top wide receiver than you gain by adding a top wide receiver. But I still think adding Tyreek Hill is a very nice thing to have.
I'm kind of on Cale's mind where it's not just the quality of the player, it's the fit. And it does seem like all of the moves, not just the big splashes with Tyreek Hill and Teron Armstead, they all kind of fit the offensive philosophy we assume that McDaniel's going to bring to the team coming from a Kyle Shanahan wide zone offense where speed and yak is sort of the king. And Tyreek Hill has had a top 10 play in terms of average or in terms of top speed, according to Next Gen Stats in the last 2 years. So is Jalen Waddle. Chase Edmonds led running backs with 100 or more carries with plays that went 15 or more miles per hour last season. So it's like all this speed can help them stretch the field horizontally. And while we think of that sort of as being a run thing, and that's going to be the run plays and the jet sweeps and stuff, that's where the space comes from in the passing game. So Tonga Vailoa may not need to do anything. Like he can just continue to get rid of the ball quickly and throw accurate short passes like he did last year. But suddenly those similarities could lead to the overall success Garoppolo had where he averaged like more than 2 yards extra after the catch versus Tonga Vailoa last year. So it's just, that could be such a huge difference just coming from the scheme and coming from players that really fit in that scheme nicely compared to what he saw last season. Aaron, let me ask this. How much of Tonga Vailoa's conservative play do you think is about his ability versus what was a strategic choice by the Dolphins last year? Because the Dolphins had the worst pass block win rate in the league. They had very poor pass blocking offensive linemen. And when Tonga Vailoa threw downfield, which wasn't often, I think he had the second lowest rate of deep attempts, but he completed 50% of his deep passes last year, throwing 20-plus air yards. That was the best among the regular quarterbacks. Small sample, man coverages, blah, 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 blah. It's all there. But, like, he might actually not be the worst deep passer. Like, why did the Dolphins do what they did?
I think the offensive line has a lot to do with it. And one part of what they did this offseason was they really improved the offensive line by bringing in Teron Armstead to play left tackle and Connor Williams to play center. Armstead knocks Eichenberg to left guard and puts
probably Austin Jackson at right tackle, I guess.
Right, unless they go with...
You could put Hunt there. I don't know, but Hunt was really good at right guard last year.
Various guys in various places, but it knocks guys to easier roles and adds one really good offensive lineman and one good offensive lineman. But I have a feeling that the scheme was partly based on the troubles that the offensive line had. That being said, all the scouting people, when they watch Tua Tagovailoa, say the arm strength is just not there.
Yeah, it's tough. With the offensive line piece, I feel like the Armstead piece in particular should really work for the running game. He still owns the combine record for the fastest 40 time for an offensive tackle. Like, he should be really good at pulling, really good at kind of setting an edge on some of those wide zone plays. But I keep coming back to the fact that the Tonga Vailoa is left-handed, and like the right tackle is the blind spot there. And that's the key weakness on the offensive line. Like, if you're a team with one dominant pass rusher, don't you just always put them on that side of the field and try to get around the edge that way? Like, I'm wondering if that's going to be the thing that blows it up, unless someone like maybe Eichenberg or Austin Jackson can really take a step forward. I'm not sure playing right tackle is going to be any easier for them if they're always facing the best pass rusher over there.
I've got some concerns just about how much shuffling is going on along the offensive line as well. Connor Williams going from guard to center isn't that big a leap, but Liam Eichenberg going from was he leading the league in blown blocks last year at 40, going from tackle to guard, that should alleviate some headache. Austin Jackson moving over to tackle. There's just a lot of, shuffling along this line that Teron Armstead being an anchor of a left tackle, I wonder how big a leap this offensive line can really take with just a lot of shuffling and, like you said, some of the mismatches on this line.
I do think about what Jeff Schwartz says, which is that he thinks going from left to right or right to left is harder than people in the NFL seem to give it credit for. It takes practice. I mean, they've got all of the preseason to practice it, but it takes practice.
Yeah, and it's especially tough to convert, veterans at the position as well. It's easier to start with a guy that's younger, but a guy that's built up sort of muscle memory and the same routine of one side of the line now has to basically just mirror that. It's a lot tougher.
I think Miami fans might be surprised to see that our defensive projection is low for them. I believe they had an above average defense last year, but there's a couple things going on here. Some of it is sort of regression to prior performance. Some of it is that they were particularly high in takeaways and in success in short yardage, which are things that tend to regress to the mean. And some of it is that their overall defensive performance last year was really skewed by one game against Ian Book, because Ian Book played with New Orleans had a bunch of third and fourth stringers out there because of COVID, and he had no idea what he was doing, and he was horrendous. And in the opponent adjustments, that game is not, adjusted for Book, it's adjusted for New Orleans. And so Miami's defense ended up looking better than it really was.
Yeah, I think you're the one that told me this, Aaron, but they finished 10th in defensive DVOA for the season, but would have finished 17th if you removed that one game. So they might have been average last year. They just got a really, really lucky break with that Ian Book game.
There's good players on this defense. Xavier Howard and Emmanuel Ogbah has been surprisingly good. I think people don't realize how good he's been in the last couple of years. And Christian Wilkins, the defensive tackle. And there's young guys like Jalen Phillips who are kind of coming up, and Javon Holland, the safety. On the other hand, Byron Jones has never been what he was in Dallas since he came to Miami. He's definitely been a problem. And, our projection seems a little low for Miami, but I don't know if the pieces are equal to the sum of their parts.
It is interesting to me that they had some extreme tendencies last season, and I'm curious what's going to happen with losing Brian Flores, but maintaining all of his defensive coaching staff and just kind of bumping everybody up a level. Because I think they were second highest in overall blitz rate. They were highest in defensive back blitz rate, kind of an unusual tendency that maybe fits their personnel pretty well. High in man coverage, another thing where if you have a lot of good coverage safeties and cornerbacks, it makes sense. Will the continuity help, or is this more of a weird shell game for a team that maybe wants to get Sean Payton in there next year and start this thing over?
I think also one other guy I want to mention, just because when we talk about draft busts, he doesn't get mentioned a lot, but Noah Igbinogini has never really done anything.
Yeah, that was the same first round, I think, when they took Jackson, too. That was a really they stockpiled all those picks, and they just really didn't work out high in the draft there.
He's kind of been the N'Keal Harry of cornerbacks.
And, that doesn't even mention Tua, who, while I think it's fair to be optimistic about, obviously they'll be regretting that choice over Herbert for the rest of their careers.
If you have two dice with the same things on them, sometimes one guy rolls a 6 and the other guy rolls a 1. And I don't think Miami rolled a 1, but the Chargers definitely rolled a 6.
That's the thing. I almost feel like if Herbert didn't go there, I don't think Tua would have this public, disappointing kind of feeling to him. His passing DVOA rates so far in his career are kind of fine. Negative 8.5% as a rookie, negative 0.7% last year, basically right at league average. Great, it's a gimmicky offense, whatever. Those are kind of the career starts that Joe Burrow had, that Kyler Murray had, that Andrew Luck had. That's a very normal start to a career for a good quarterback. But Herbert is just incredible, and in particular has the deep arm strength that Tua, that's the one obvious deficiency there. And that really sets up the contrast that I think people kind of read into, and that's why they're so pessimistic for him in the first place.
It'll be really interesting to see how people react to how he does in this offense, because will they give, if he plays well, will they just give all the credit to the scheme, or will they at least say, hey, he's at least as good as Garoppolo? Or will we feel like if he can make some deep throws, will we feel like he's better? We don't have them going to we don't have them as one of the top 7 teams in the AFC, but I would not be surprised if Miami made the playoffs.
No, I think I could certainly make a leap. I'm really excited about the young guys like Xavier Howard. I think I had touted when I wrote up the AFC East for the weakest position still remaining. I had tapped their safety position, but I am still really excited on Javon Holland. Really solid rookie season last year. Just beyond there, though, like you had mentioned, Byron Jones, big letdown, Noah Igbinogini, another draft bust, and the N'Keal Harry of cornerbacks, as you said. Especially in Javon Holland's absence, the safety position is just really weak. It's this defense is really contingent, it seems to me, at least, on a few core pieces, and they don't have a ton of the depth. I do think that is where some of the familiarity with keeping the same system in-house will help. I think at the very least they can try and scrape together something similar to last year with very similar personnel. I also don't mind the addition of Melbourne Ingram. He's probably, he's a shell of his former self at this point. Definitely could be more of a rotational guy, it seems, but I do still like the
addition.
At the very least. Yeah, definitely a useful
I also feel like the Dolphins, with their defensive back blitzing, it's like reminiscent to me of the Spagnuolo Chiefs, where like the scheme is almost designed to create opportunities for turnovers. And so while we always think of those as being something that are going to kind of regress back toward the league average every year, I wouldn't be shocked if over the long term, like this type of Dolphins defensive scheme would lead to more turnovers. Like they would be on the list of teams where I'm like, yeah, I kind of expect them to be in the top 10 in defensive turnover rate.
I mean, Exhibit A, Xavier Howard, led the league in interceptions for how long now? Outside of last year?
The trouble is, like, the thing about secondary is that it's a weak link system where when you have one weak link, the other team can just go after that weak link. So if you're the offense, you can avoid Xavier Howard if you want to and throw at Byron Jones, throw at Nick Needham, throw at Igbinogini if he's on the field. So, yeah, it's better. Sometimes it's better to have two good cornerbacks than one great cornerback and one below average cornerback.
Like what'll kind of maybe paper over that a bit, though, is the I would say ascending pass rush. Like you mentioned this with Emmanuel Ogbah. I'm not really sure why he doesn't get the credit. I guess the sack totals never quite get high enough, but he's kind of a sneaky perennial top 10 hurries type of guy. And if Jalen Phillips, who I think if Micah Parsons hadn't been there and like who is like a once every 5 year type of defensive prospect, people would have been going crazy for how well Phillips played last year. I think he had like 8.5 sacks and basically half a season as a starter. Like this could suddenly be a very, very good pass rush, which really, like, especially with the defensive back blitzing, I think could probably turn this defense around a little bit, even if there are a couple of holes out there.